Good evening, everybody. Today is Monday, November 18th, 2019, 6:30 p.m. It's time for the Board of Selectmen, Highway and Cemetery Commissioners meeting. First order of business, as always, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, guys. Chairman Sullivan is absent this evening. Item 2 is acceptance of minutes. We have the minutes of November 4th, 2019. Mr. Siganovich.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes of November 4th, 2019 as written.
Motion by Mr. Siganovich, seconded by Mr. Johnson. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Item number 3, Town Administrator's Report. Mr. Ritter.
Good evening. First item is Camden Partners. I have the initial meeting with Camden Partners lined up for Wednesday at 1 p.m. As you recall, they're the firm that's interested in developing Stevens Mill into a 164-unit residential complex. The initial meeting will involve clarification of bylaws in the town of Dudley's TIF program, and will involve me, town council, and representatives from Camden. It's important that this initial meeting take place within this setting so that both the town and Camden Partners are on the same page as we enter into further discussions and negotiations, and that the expectations are kept realistic on both sides. I apologize, I'm losing my voice again. Week number 3.
Mr. Ritter, and that was for the Stevens Mill, right? For Camden Partners?
That's correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Item 2 is cybersecurity. Based on several factors, including my assessment of a need for the work and an expressed public interest by the Board of Selectmen in our cybersecurity posture, I've been able to secure more than adequate state grant funding to hire an independent accredited cybersecurity firm, which will conduct a thorough and detailed assessment of the town's IT infrastructure, network security, and vulnerabilities. I'm going to, because of my voice, Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to cut to the chase. They're going to do some penetration testing. They're going to try to hack into our systems. They're going to come back and give us a full report as to what our vulnerabilities are and what we need to do to fix those vulnerabilities. The amount of the grant I'm purposely not saying publicly, but I'm happy to tell you after the meeting because it will go to a bid, and I don't want to tip our hand as to how much money is available.
Got it.
But it's more than adequate.
Good to hear. That's great to show.
Okay. And Michelle, as of today, has worked with Lisa, and I believe we're ready to send out the information and public awareness literature to residents of private roads about our road betterment bylaws. My hope is that if there's enough interest, we'll have a meeting in the spring and try to help people along to get their roads to the point where they can be accepted as town roads. And of course, the benefit to residents is that the town will maintain those roads, and the benefit of the town is that we won't run into an issue with public safety should we need to access those roads when we have ice and winter events that make them inaccessible. I've been in touch with our town planner, who has been out on a medical leave, and I'm sorry to report that he will not be returning from medical leave this month as planned. And I've spoken with our acting planner, Bill Scanlon, who is currently working under temporary contract to provide us with town planner services. I'll be seeking to extend Bill's contract with the town through December 31st to cover Don's absence. Bill is amenable to that extension. And DMA's attorney, Nick Adamopoulos, has reached out to me via email last week seeking to begin negotiations with our counsel, Brian Riley. In speaking with Brian Riley, we decided that Brian and I should have a meeting prior to having both attorneys engage. We anticipate that the first meeting will produce a template for a host community agreement and a starting point for the negotiations. As always, I will keep the Board of Selectmen advised, and will do so publicly whenever possible. And I'm adding this to this is not in your notes, but at the end of the day today I received a notification from the court that the the Durgan versus Town of Dudley case has been dismissed. And that was based upon the fact that the administrative remedies have not been exhausted on a local level, and that's an absolute reason to dismiss the case. That's my
Thank you, Mr. Ruda. Mr. Joseph?
Yeah, 2 points to clarify. One is that in your report on cybersecurity, you're also going to be checking on best practices for our voting machine.
That's correct. That will be part of the
Number one.
scope.
Number two is that the appeal, that the dismissal is of the Durgan's appeal. Because, and it was denied because they didn't, as Jonathan said, because they never exhausted their administrative remedies. But it's the appeal that was dismissed, and that's important to note.
Solon.
Just a quick question. Will the host agreement for the DMA, will we vote on that through town meeting, or how is that worked through?
The host agreement for DMA is voted on through the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. So it'll be like held in this setting?
That's correct.
Okay.
Anything else for Town Administrator tonight?
That should do it, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
unless you have anything.
Nope, I don't. Just speedy recovery for Don Johnson, the Town Planner.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, guys, we're good? All right. Now, we're gonna move into number 4, which is a public hearing. We have Lisa Berg, our principal assessor, here tonight. She is going to do her annual tax classification hearing. I will, hopefully we're within, let's see, it's 6:30. Yep, we're good. Chair will open the public hearing at 6:40 PM. Hi, Lisa.
Okay. I'm going to attempt PowerPoint.
Attempt.
Be patient with me. So we do this annually.
Look at it, it's working.
It's fading in and out, too. It's not just, look at that.
What about the PowerPoint?
So the purpose of this hearing is to determine whether to distribute part of the tax levy over to equally amongst all classes, or to reduce the share of the levy that's borne by the residential classes and shift the burden to the commercial, industrial, and personal property classes. On this pie chart, you can see we have 91.8% residential properties, 3.2% commercial, 2.6% industrial, and the remaining 2.4 is our personal properties. So this hearing is held once a year to determine if the levy gets divided evenly with a single tax rate, or if we shift some of the burden between the classes. So these are our historical class percentages. As you can see, if you go back to 2012 through 2020, just in residential, it hasn't changed much at all. Neither has commercial, industrial, or personal property.
Lisa, what, I know it's only 0.1%, but personal property, you know what was driving that?
We cleaned up the personal property. We hired our RC to come out and visit all our personal property accounts, and they cleaned that up. Some people were not being taxed appropriately.
And how does the, okay, thanks for that. And how does our commercial percent drop?
Well,
If someone went out
it's
of
not a
business
very
or
big,
moved?
if it dropped, it could be that it was turned into a commercial mixed-use property,
Oh, okay.
where there may be residential along with commercial. I can't think of a circumstance why it would have dropped down from this year. It's very, very small amount.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. So every year I do the top taxpayers in town, just to show you that we don't have a lot of large commercial industrial properties here in town. For example, we only have one taxpayer over $6 million, and that's Massachusetts Electric. So shifting the burden over to Massachusetts Electric would not hurt them because they're such a big business, but it would affect the residential properties. And it would, I'm sorry, it wouldn't affect the residential properties, it would affect the smaller businesses in town. We have 3 taxpayers over 4 million. As you can see, 1 out of the 3 is Boston Gas, utility company. And then we have 5 taxpayers over 2 million. So that first one is Perk and Shop, and we have Henke Sass. J. Patrick McGowan, that's the apartment complexes on Mill Road and Dresser Hill Road. Angelo Di Donato, that is Southbridge Tool and Shields Packaging. Then we only have 16 taxpayers over 1 million. Everything else is less than that.
Oh, Mr. Joseph, sorry. I was reading.
Lisa, what will happen if the old Stevens Linen Mill is successfully redeveloped? It'll be apartments, 1 and 2 bedroom, et cetera. So does that get billed to the people who buy the property as residential and to the developer as commercial? How does that work?
So it depends on what they do. Say they do the first floor and they put in a barber shop, a little convenience store, and they use 1 floor for just commercial, and then the rest of the floors are residential. That becomes a mixed-use property. So the commercial would be assessed at a commercial rate, and the rest would be assessed as a residential rate.
And the residential rate would be paid by the people who buy?
Correct. Whoever the owner of the building is would pay the real estate taxes for all the apartments. If you get a business in there, and it's a small business, we have a $10,000 personal property exemption. So if their personal property is less than $10,000, they would not get a personal property bill. But the owner of the business would still be paying for the entire building, both the commercial and the
So
residential.
the owner would pay if it's residential, for those that are
He'd
residential?
pay everything. If it's commercial and residential, mixed use, the owner is still responsible. The
Okay.
only thing we can pick up is if there's personal property over 10,000 in value from the business owner that's within the building.
One more question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Paul.
How is that property billed at this time?
I believe right now it is commercial.
Okay, so with a single rate, which is what we've done for so long, it wouldn't make a difference if it's commercial or residential. But would the property be valued at more than what it is right now? And
Yes,
therefore, those taxes would increase?
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
So these 16 taxpayers, as you can see, there's a couple of personal property, but again, Verizon New England and Charter Communications. The ones that would get hurt with the shift would be just about everybody else on here. You have a builder, you have a car dealership, you have a horse farm, you have the mill over here on Chase Ave, you have apartment buildings, Universal Tag. Those would be the people that would be hit the hardest if the rate was shift. So the fiscal 2020 proposed average assessed values now, because we have not been approved yet by the Department of Revenue, I can't submit until this classification hearing is over. The average single-family home this year is $262,900. I believe last year it was at $250 and change. Condominium averages $109,681. 2 families, $185,328. 3 families, $194,116. Commercial is averaging $342,709, and industrial $467,291. So the next section is, what if we shifted the tax rate burden, the tax burden off of residential properties and shifted over to commercial, industrial, and personal property classes? And I did it by, like I do every year, in 5% increments. So right now, the proposed tax rate that we're looking at is $13.06, which is a decrease of 44 cents from last year. So if we shifted the burden off of residential by 5% and on to the CIP properties, it would be $13 for residential and $13.71 for the CIP properties. So if you go all the way over to the last column, with that 5% shift, the residential properties will only see a $15 decrease in their taxes per year, but the other classes would increase by $253 more per year. So if you look down that column, if we get to the 30%, you can see that if we shift it, the residential taxpayers are going to save an average of $92 a year, but the businesses are going to get hit with a $1,500 increase. So these are all our assessed values by class from 2011 up to the proposed 2020. As you can see, the totals have gone up slightly. Okay, and this is just general information. So the assessment date for our 2020 values were as of January 1st of 2019. We are a Chapter 653 town. So what that means is we don't have, on new construction or any property that's increased more than 50% than what it was the prior year, we can pick up that last 6 months and send a supplemental bill. Normally that happens with new construction. So say on January 1st, a property was valued at, I don't know, we'll say it was at 20% of full value. And then they got occupancy on May 30th. Well, that value increased more than 50% since January 1. So we pick that up, we prorate that bill by day, and we send them a supplemental bill. The Department of Revenue approved our assessments on November 7th of this year. There's 351 towns in Massachusetts, and only 110 have a split tax rate. Now, we've gone up. We used to be the 60-something lowest tax rate in Massachusetts. We're now at 100. And that's because of the 2.5 override that we had last year, because it bumped the tax rate up almost $2.
So there were 251 cities and towns.
351.
Let me, bear with me. There were 251 cities and towns in the state that have a higher tax rate than we do.
Yes,
That's my question.
yes. And we're still one of the lowest, obviously.
Okay.
We're in the first one-third.
It used to be 10 to 15.
We're seeing an overall value of single families increasing by 3%. Now, I want to make this clear. For all the taxpayers out there that are watching, not every single house went up 3% in value. This is mass appraisal. We don't pick individual houses and increase them or decrease them by 1%. This would be the overall residential properties increase an average of 3%. And some did not. We were finding that our sales were, we had our assessed values and the houses were selling for $60,000 to $80,000 more than I had them assessed at. So that doesn't fly with the DOR. We had to increase them. There was no change in the commercial and industrial
Mr.
properties.
Johnson, yeah.
Can you explain that last
Yeah,
point
go ahead.
again?
I was gonna.
About the Department of Revenue?
Yeah.
Will not accept that?
So the Department of Revenue has us stay within a percentage of assessment to sales ratio.
Mhm.
We can be anywhere from 90 to 110% in that assessment to sales ratio. If we're outside of that, they will not approve our values.
So your hands are tied in the,
Right.
yeah, okay.
They have us send them all kinds of statistical reports in order to approve us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So as I showed you in one of the other slides, the average single-family assessment for 2020 is $262,900. That's up a little bit from last year, but that was to be expected with the sales. The average commercial industrial assessment for 2020 is $395,50. That's up a little bit. Our new growth value is $8,078,895, which brings an additional revenue to the town of $109,065. So this would be building permits, new houses, decks, those type of things. So any new construction.
At least a new net growth was maybe
through Jonathan as well. Was that 109,065, was that part of the fall budget, or would that come into play when we do next year's?
I think it's next year, we're setting it now.
Okay, all right, just wanna, people see we have money, where do we go?
So here's a 5-year history of our tax rate. Back in 16, it was 12.08, and then it dropped, and it dropped, and then it went way up by $1.77, and as I said before, that was due to the 2.5 override. So there's no, I think we had some debt that retired, if I'm not mistaken, which brought the tax rate down a little bit. So here's the tax rate comparisons to other towns. I did add one column in here this year, and that's the second column, the tax rate rank out of the 351 cities and towns. So look at Southbridge. Out of 351 cities and towns, they rank 321st in a high tax rate. If you look down the residential column and the commercial, industrial, and personal property columns, and I always use Webster and Oxford as an example. Look at how much commercial and industrial percentage that they have, and they just switched back over to a single tax rate, and it took them 10 years to do that.
Douglas is still higher than us, residential.
We're still the lowest out of all these towns.
That's why I think, Mr. Chairman, that number of 100th lowest out of 371,
351.
351 is deceiving, because there are a lot of towns that are much more wealthy than Dudley with a lower tax rate, and that's because the value of their homes is, 2.5 times what the value of our homes are here in Dudley. So, $400,000 home in Dudley is a $800,000 or $1 million home in a Wellesley.
Right.
And they realize a lower tax rate, but they still collect more on that individual property. So it's a little bit deceiving to say you're 100th, because when you put it up against Webster, Dudley, Sturbridge, all the local regional towns, that's a better, more accurate comparison than to
average
put it
tax.
against everybody in the state.
So the average tax value per household is more indicative, is that what you're saying?
Correct. If you have $1.5 million home in a Wellesley, and you have a $300,000 home of the exact same type in Dudley, and you're paying $10 per thousand in Wellesley, you're still realizing a lot more on your taxes, on the tax return, than you would get in Dudley. So people have to take that into account, too.
So overall dollars per taxpayer is
Yes.
a better
That's
measure.
Correct.
Lisa, could I bother you to go back to the previous?
Oh, you're testing me? I don't
I
have
am,
a
I'm
graph on
testing.
this.
You're being graded. Yes, no, I'm kidding.
Which one did you want me to go back to?
Just the back one, the one we were just talking about. If you, uh-oh.
Can you go back
I
and
broke it.
hit escape? That's it. Yep, scroll down to the slide, scroll up, actually,
This
right
one?
there, yep.
Yes. Average single-family tax bill. I think that's what Mr. Ruda and Mr. Johnson were talking about, where Wellesley's $10 per whatever. It all comes down to how much we're paying. And even though we might have a similar tax rate to other places or be a little bit lower, the average single-family tax bill is still much less than anyone else. That's kind of what I wanted
Even
to.
so,
What was our value again?
3436, where, I mean, 600, like 15% less than neighboring communities.
Question?
Mr. Joseph.
To Mr. Ruda. Jonathan, could we get a brief report from the treasurer as to how much debt will be eliminated over each of the next 5 years? I would find that interesting and helpful.
It's funny, he spontaneously offered that to me tonight, about 10 minutes ago.
Did he really?
So, yeah, we'll definitely get that.
I like that. I like to see that.
Good idea.
Can we anticipate the tax rate going down? Like one of the slides was like a 5-year, like a comparison. It went up because of the 2.5 override, and then the trend This year it went down, good, like, what was it, like 40 cents or so. Can we assume that the graphical trend would be in the downwards direction, or is that,
No.
no?
It'll vary.
It depends on the budget. So the Proposition 2.5 override, that $1.77 is permanent on the tax rate. That will never come off.
Okay,
If you have a debt exclusion, say for a fire truck or a cruiser, that's usually a 20-year note, and once that's paid off, that comes off the tax rate. So
okay.
it all depends on if we're making purchases, if we're debt excluding, or if
Yeah.
we're doing overrides.
So
So-
we usually we'll take out a 20-year note, but we'll pay it off in 5 years. So it
Okay.
comes off pretty quickly. So that'll make the tax rate go down because it's not permanent.
Is that like what happened in like the 2011, 2012 years? Is that why it was like lower than?
Well, we paid off this building, I believe, this year, so I don't think did it catch up with us this year?
I think it did as of June 30th.
Yeah,
But
okay.
also, the tax rate can go down if assessments go really high.
Mhm.
The tax rate has to drop because we can't take in more than 2.5% in revenues from the
Right.
prior year.
Mhm.
So if we have high assessments and a high tax rate, we're gonna go over that 2.5% in revenue.
Okay.
And if people don't like that, who do they call at the State House?
So, in
Speak your
conclusion,
oath, house.
it is the recommendation of the Board of Assessors that the Board of Selectmen vote on a residential factor of 1, which will continue our historical single tax rate.
Flat rate.
So keep it the
Okay.
same, is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's for fiscal 2000,
2020, fiscal 2020.
fiscal 2020.
So that, preliminary bills went out already, and that was based on what the taxpayers paid all last year and divided that by 4. Now we have the new assessments. Hopefully the tax rate will get approved before the end of the week at the 1306. Whatever the balance is left over when you multiply that out, we'll subtract the taxpayers' August and November payments and split the remainder over the February and May payments.
Okay. So since this is a public hearing,
Mm-hmm.
no motion can be made.
That's correct.
But I do want to make note. The kid asks good questions.
I agree, and the reason there was good, because it got her, because at least I explained it, so someone at home who might have been thinking the
Yeah.
same thing you did, now they might know, so, good job, Al.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Lisa? Any of the public hearing, any, you guys?
Nobody has questions after?
Oh, you do such a, that's,
So in depth.
says what it says.
I can't think of any other PowerPoint quizzes for you, so you're
Oh,
off the hook.
thanks. I failed that miserably.
Any other questions?
Oh, you
I
did
never
great.
practiced going backwards. I never did.
Animation
did
next
great.
time, maybe?
Animation. But she had the fade in and out, which was kind of neat. All right, well, if there's no more questions, I'm gonna close the public hearing at 7:01 PM. What is the board's pleasure, Mr. Joseph?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move that the town approve a single tax rate for FY 2020 as recommended by the assessor.
Motion by Mr. Joseph, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sigenovich, discussion. Discussion, hearing none, call that to a vote, all in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you,
Thank
Lisa,
you,
very
Lisa.
Take
much.
your time.
This board remains business-friendly, and we will keep that
Absolutely.
message here. Okay, thanks a lot, Lisa. Good job, great job. All right, we'll move on to some public business. I see Sarah White is in here, waiting patiently. Sarah's from Hands, and she's asking permission to use the lobby of the town hall during the tree lighting ceremony, like they've done the past couple of years, for Tuesday, December 3rd, 2019, at 6 PM. Hi, Sarah.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me. Yes, we've done it in the past. I've just set up a table right in the lobby. We've got a donation basket, information pamphlets for people. It's just good exposure for Hands. Before I go any further, I want to thank John Breyer for updating the application online on the town's website, because it hadn't been updated. And I've gotten a number of questions this year from people asking if Hands is still in existence. So that concerned me.
Wow.
Because we are alive and well. This is our 12th year. We've given out 152 awards totaling $68,751 since our inception. So we're doing something here, in this little corner of the world. So
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Joseph.
I'd like to move that the board grant permission to Hands, Hands, to set up a table in the lobby of the town hall during the tree lighting ceremony on Tuesday, December 3rd at 6 p.m.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Joseph, seconded by Mr. Sigenovich. Discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Jerry?
Just so the folks at home know, what does HANDS, the acronym, what does that stand for?
Helping address the needs of Dudley
Dudley
seniors.
Okay. One of Mr. Joseph's questions there, just for the folks at home, I already knew, I just
Thank
wanted
you.
to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, helping people with heating.
With heating, right. We do electric, oil, natural gas, even stove pellets.
Really?
Uh-huh.
I always think oil, but yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
you always think of oil, but no, actually, a few people have the electric. They need help with the electricity.
I have that. I don't like
So, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to send this around if everybody could just sign. At the bottom, there are no lines, just so you know.
it. Oh, for that one that comes around?
That's for the tax classification.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much.
See you at the
Thank
tree
you,
lighting.
Sarah.
Next up, Dudley PTO
I
is
just
here.
signed somewhere.
They are asking for permission to hold a toll booth on Saturday, November 23rd, 2019. That's this weekend from 9 a.m. to noon at the town line to benefit the PTO. Welcome. Can you
Hi.
state your name and...
Okay, so it's Diana Hersian.
Okay, I didn't want to guess at that, so I figured I'd have you
No
do
worries.
it.
No worries. So I'm here to help represent from the Dudley PTO. We wanted to do a toll booth to help raise money to keep the programs going for all the schools in Dudley.
You're awfully brave to do this on November 23rd. And
Why
I
is that?
certainly hope that the weather allows you and your people who stand out there to do it and survive.
Well, I hope so too. I'll be out there from 9 to 12.
It's
God
just,
bless
it's
you.
just layers, Paul.
Oof.
Mr. Joseph likes doing his toll booths in the warmer months, let's just say.
Oh, yeah.
I don't blame you.
Mr. Sigenovich.
Is Mr. Administrator, is that date open? Do you know? It is? Okay. Have you, one more question.
Yeah.
Have you spoken with the police
of
chief?
Yes, I did. I
Okay.
did speak to him actually today.
Any concerns? You're good?
Have you assigned a rain date, or is this it?
The president said that if it rains, we would cancel it. I'm running it, so I would say rain or shine, it's gonna happen.
Love it.
I'll see you guys out there.
Okay. Any other questions for Diana, guys? Sounds it's all squared away.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Sigenovich?
I'd like to make a motion that we allow grant the request for the Dudley PTO to hold a toll booth on Saturday, November 23rd, 2019, from 9 a.m. to noon at the town line to benefit the PTO.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Sigenovich, seconded by Mr. Johnson. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diana. Good to
Good
meet
luck.
you.
It was
luck.
good meeting you guys
Good to
too.
see you. All right. Next up, under 5C, TA progress review. TA will distribute his employee performance review and discuss process steps with Board of Selectmen for assigning ratings. Selectmen may vote to adopt process or take any other action relative thereto.
Mr. Chairman, I think everybody already has a copy of it in their folders. So what I am going to distribute is the proposed process.
Is this one for everybody?
Yes. It's not much different than the way we've done them in the past for the town administrator, Mr. Chairman. Everybody will go home.
Now, if I recall,
Yep.
your contract, this was part of the contractual thing that we had to do, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, go ahead, sorry.
So everybody will take their copy home and assign their ratings and comments. Bring them back in 2 weeks for public discussion.
Okay.
And essentially, we'll do like we've done in the past, unless the board feels differently, and assign a rating to each. Assign a numerical value to each rating. So I would propose exceeds expectations be a 4, meets expectations be a 3, satisfactory be a 2, unsatisfactory be a 1. So at the next meeting, hopefully we'll have a full board. I'll make sure Mr. Sullivan gets a copy of his this week. We can go around and have everybody give an opportunity to assign me their individual rating, make their comments, and then the total average of all the ratings put together would be the overall rating, progress rating for the report, for the review.
Okay. So, this is being, so you just said that's being put on the next agenda? Or we just submit it and we'll?
We'll put it has to be done publicly, so we'll put it on the
Sorry,
next
you did say
agenda.
that.
Yeah.
All right, I was reading when I said that. So we assign weights, everybody understand that? We all have to assign weights for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
5.
buckets of criteria. You have his job description. I think that's what that is attached. And his proposed review process. Now, does this, you might have answered this in my first question. Does this match what's in the contract, like all the different buckets?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Joseph?
Yeah, I talked to Jonathan about this earlier today. Had I negotiated the contract, I would not have had the term unsatisfactory. And the reason is that's such a profoundly negative terminology to use. In the future, I'd like the board just to consider, instead of unsatisfactory, use needs improvement. Needs improvement means that the job is being done, but there are some ways that the outcome can be increased. So I'm just mentioning that. I understand what the contract says,
Okay.
and I certainly intend to abide by the contract, but it's a philosophical observation.
Understand. You, just so I understand what you're saying, Mr. Joseph, you would just, whatever, down the road, if we decided to do that, replacing the term needs improvement with
I'll replace unsatisfactory
needs improvement.
with needs improvement.
Okay.
And I think what that does is it allows the opportunity for mathematical upward trend.
Okay.
That's why I like the term needs improvement rather than the profoundly negative unsatisfactory.
Okay. Mr. Johnson?
I'm not sure what would be trending. There's not a lot of analytics that we're looking at. If you want to wordsmith it, it's
Yeah,
fine with me.
time will tell.
Okay. No, I mean, it's point well taken. I mean, I think.
I always argue that, there's always improvement.
Yes.
Doesn't
Continuous
matter.
improvement.
Continuous. Whether you meet
You never
I would argue if you meet expectations, you should be seeking
If
improvement.
this was
Yeah, I
the,
just find the term less negative.
if this was the Patriots, Bill Belichick, if he gave you a 4, that'd still be a needs improvement.
Yeah. If
That-
it
that-
were,
But I remember seeing that on progress reports and report cards, needs improvement. They don't tell the kids they're unsatisfactory. They tell them they need improvement. It's a little
So would
more
you argue we
warm
should,
and fuzzy.
remove Fs from report cards? Well, we can get the school committee.
I'm not touching that one.
I already know his answer. He would never do that.
All right, what do we?
All right, anybody have any questions for the town administrator?
Nope.
Jonathan, thanks for keeping us on track for this. I know we had contractual obligations and keeping us doing that, seeing as I was involved in your contract.
And Mr. Chairman, if anything comes up over the next 2 weeks and you want further clarification,
Yeah.
any data I can provide,
So
I'm happy to do it.
No, I appreciate that. So these goals are the ones that everybody agreed to. These are the same ones, right, that we looked at?
These are the goals that were recommended and were never changed or modified.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
How was that for a response?
That was a fair way to define that.
Good way to define
Thank
Okay,
you.
so
Everybody had well opportunity, right?
So it just, everybody, are we bringing it in individually, or are we giving them to Michelle to collate and tally?
I would
or-
imagine, like in the past, if I may, we give them all to the chair.
Yep.
And if the chair's not available, the vice chair,
Yeah,
to tally them up with a mathematical total
Okay.
average.
yeah, that's where I was getting at, just how do we,
Can I suggest that we do that as at the next meeting as they're read.
Yeah.
I mean,
do
it's,
that.
we're not talking
It's public,
very
so.
advanced math here.
No, it's not, it's not.
Just because we've been dinged in the past on, let's just do everything right out in the open. I'm happy with that.
Okay. Okay, no, that's good. Transparency,
Hmm.
number one. All right, everybody know what you need to do, so take that home with you guys.
I thought I was past homework, but that's okay.
Yeah. Okay, good, guys? So do we need to, all right, I guess you need a vote for us to adopt the process then.
No,
Oh, it said may vote, okay. Okay. We'll just agree to,
Let's agree, at least agree to it so it doesn't change in 2 weeks, right?
well, it's in the contract, so it's
Right.
automatically agreed to.
Okay.
all right, we're moving on, guys. Thank you, Mr. Jonathan. Item 6, board member comments. Mr. Joseph?
Yeah, one is I want to publicly, I'm sure on behalf of the board, congratulate Chief Warner on being cancer-free for 5 years. And to echo his caution to everyone to get your colonoscopies done. And we're glad you did that. We're glad you're still here, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Glad to be here. Secondly is to let folks know that the Blessed Backpack Brigade meals have been burgeoning. Yeah, with
Nice word.
with substantial crowds. And this Wednesday, we will be hosting our annual Thanksgiving dinner. And that'll be this coming Wednesday at the Webster Dudley American Legion from 5 to 6 p.m. or however long it takes to feed all of the people. And this particular meal, we will be assisted by about 10 volunteers from Nichols College. Some time ago, the elected and appointed officials in Webster served one of our meals, and I will once again ask that the board pick a date for one of our meals and encourage appointed and elected folks from Dudley to serve the meal, to set up, to serve, and to help clean up, and let folks know that you support those in need. That's it. Well, this Wednesday is the meal.
This
Wednesday, Right.
it's the 20th, right?
It's the 20th. And we had boxes of summer squash and
Run through the menu, Paul.
and sweet potatoes donated by Farmer Tim's, and those were delivered by staff and by Laurie, my wife, to Nichols College today. So it'll be turkey. We have a lot of turkey. We have about, this is not about, 204 pounds of turkeys. Some donated, and others purchased, and turkey breasts. And we have about 40 pounds of dry stuffing that'll be mixed, and all of your veggies, gravy, desserts. We have 2 women who won't let anybody else make the Jell-O, and they are known as the Jell-O ladies. And they do a great job of providing sugar-free Jell-O. We get pastries from Panera donated, and we get donuts from Dippin' Donuts donated. I do want to mention, I'm sorry I omitted it, this past Thursday night, the entrepreneur class at Nichols, for the 4th straight year, did a fundraiser for the Backpack Brigade. It was at the place on the lake.
Point Breeze.
What?
Point Breeze?
Yeah.
Waterfront Marriage?
I knew that.
Oh, jeez.
No. Yeah, Waterfront Breeze, no. Point Breeze, it was a buffet, it was wonderful, there were raffles, and there was a large crowd. The room was probably 85, 90% full. No? I think there were 126 people who paid, and I don't know how many moochers. You know? It was a great event. So we want to thank the students at Nichols for doing a really good job this year. Thank you.
Good, thanks, Paul. No, good update. Mr. Johnson?
No, nothing today.
Mr. Siganovich?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
Okay. Before we go to our student selectmen, I'd like to thank everybody who participated in Veterans Day last Monday. It was a great day, great weather, very great turnout by the scouts, the band, both Dudley and Webster. Lots of residents and of course our veterans. It was just well done. I always appreciate the hard work of those teams. Our veterans agent, Steve Rogerson, and Rich Haleva and their team put together a great program for everybody. Dudley and Webster are going to be proud. And watching Don Christina get the Grand Marshal was something else. So thanks to all who did that. Great. And two, just notice a lot of trees. Vinny and his team have been busy kind of on some tree cutting the last couple of weeks, so I wanted to publicly thank him for that. I think we get a lot of calls for trees, and just being proactive and kind of picking and choosing the ones we can kind of trim, not even just take down, but some do that. Oh,
Just touch base on that real quick.
yeah, all right.
Yeah, I kind of prioritize them, and the more hazard, the more up on the list it is. The town was grateful enough to give more money at the meeting, the town meeting. Unfortunately, it is going to burn that money right up, and there's still going to be some hazard trees still standing. The list just never ends.
Yep.
It just...
Yep.
I update it once a month, and I take a few trees off, and I'm adding more than 2 or 3 back on, so it's just growing and growing and growing, but we're working on it.
Yep, no, I appreciate it. People see that. Thanks, Vinny.
Thing about those trees, they grow.
Yeah, they grow. They get old, they rot.
Hey, while Vinny's up there, can we put to death
I'm sorry.
the rumor that Webster is going to take over Dudley's recycling center? That is a crock of cockamamie.
I was gonna say, you
Untruth.
have to put cockamamie. I haven't even heard that. Is that a real thing?
I've
I have
heard
not
that,
heard that.
and I've put it to bed. I use the transfer station. I'm guilty of going there probably 3 times a week.
Just want to put that to bed.
And I don't know where
Where'd
it
that
came
come
from.
I don't know. I asked Jonathan about it. He's heard it too, and
Well, I'm
We're not
sure,
sure
I'm
where
sure
it's at.
just by saying, when our contract is over, we'll likely go out to bid, and saying that Webster does it, is completely privatized, just by saying that phrase, there's a conspiracy.
Well-
So, there's no conspiracy. We're gonna go out to bid, we're gonna look at a model that best suits Dudley, with Minnie's input, and away we go.
Okay.
but that does not include having Webster run our recycling.
Oh, well, I don't have no idea where that came from.
I'm telling you that doesn't.
I mean, that's
Chairman.
taken,
I can tell you where I think it came from. There's a sign on a door, and there's a sign on the door at the transfer station that says the price is in Webster. And I don't know if that sign is there to show that we're cheaper than Webster, because we are. I
Yeah.
took a look at it. We're cheaper for everything.
Yep.
Maybe that just someone thought, oh, that's what we're going to, and that just took flight.
I think it's a good tool to negotiate something, because you're looking outside the box and you're looking at different options. So, yeah, take a look at Webster.
we gotta be,
Webster don't even run Webster's.
Right.
Privatized, like, yeah.
we have to be able to look outside of what we're doing currently, and
Oh,
not
yeah.
get nervous about it.
Tim-
We run about $300 in the black every year. We fail for some reason to consider the benefits we pay, so we pretend we're running in the black, but we won't get into that discussion.
We've been down that road.
But we're not that far off. We recently had the prices go up. When I first came in, we were able to at least stabilize those prices. So I think we just about break even. We certainly don't turn a profit on it. I think we can do better. Doesn't mean we're gonna privatize, have Webster take us over, no conspiracy. We're just gonna do what is in the best interest of the town and the users of the recycling center, that's it.
Good.
That is definitely the goal.
Yeah.
Fair enough, Mr. Joseph?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Cool.
And I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, because I don't think we're meeting till after that.
We are not.
You're not?
December 2nd will be the next one.
Good catch.
Good catch, Ray. Thank you. Student Selectman Al Salonis has updates.
Shepherd Hill Cheer got second place at Central Regional Championships this weekend. The football team played St. John's in Leominster. They unfortunately lost. The next football game is on Thanksgiving. Kickoff is 10:15 at Carminati Field. They are playing Tantascwa, as usual.
The game, by the way.
Yes, that'll be a fun game to watch for sure. Mr. Shepherd Hill is on Thursday this week. That's always a fun thing.
Are you gonna enter this year?
Yeah, I'm in it.
What, can you get any big reveal, or is it a secret?
Nope, it's a secret.
All right.
You gotta
then I
come.
won't ask.
You gotta come and watch.
There it is.
Gotta come and watch.
Reeling you
There
right
it
in,
is.
John.
That's something you'd say, Paul. Gotta
I
show up
like
to find
that.
out. That
I
was
like
good.
that. This kid's got a future.
Yep.
The band won nationals again at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, which was really cool. The Holiday Spectacular is coming up on December 13th from 7 to 9 and December 14th 2 to 4. And Miss Boussier actually said that she has a whole row reserved for you guys if you want to go to any of the
How
shows.
much are the tickets?
Well, it's free for you.
Nope.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
football.
It's $15 for adults, $10 for seniors and students.
Do we have a schedule that maybe can be emailed out to us? I
Yes.
kinda like going to the, maybe get that to Michelle. We
Mm-hmm.
can,
All right, so can
Definitely.
we have the date on that again, please?
The 13th of December is from 7 to 9, and the 14th of December is from 2 to 4.
Got it.
Couldn't quite hear you.
what was 12/14 was what day? I mean, what time?
2 to 4.
So is it a Friday night, Saturday?
Yes.
What a great show.
Yeah, it's a
Friday night,
absolutely amazing production that they
And
put
it's
on.
worth paying the price of admission.
Yeah.
She's got a whole row set up
That
for
was
you
very
guys.
nice of her to offer.
So,
I'd rather
she-
pay
um,
for it.
A
I was
whole
very
row, that's
pleased
a
to hear
lot
that.
of seats.
And thank you to the police and fire for doing the escort for the
yeah,
band, too.
thank you for
That's-
that. That was really amazing.
it's,
For real, that was absolutely spectacular. The craft fair is coming up on Saturday, from 9 to 4, and that's
Saturday?
yeah, and it's $5 to get in. There's, I believe there's about 200 or more crafters. They've got a lot of crafters coming, so it's going to be a great turnout.
Go to that.
And all the profits go
My
to
wife does a
the
lot of Christmas shopping there.
the profits go to
With it.
the music department. That's our biggest fundraiser of the year. So if you can come and support the music department, that'd be great. And the girls cross country are 5th in the state. They did really well this weekend at their competition.
Led by a freshman?
I believe a
What year
senior.
was Emma Sullivan?
She's a senior.
Senior.
She
She's a
was
senior.
She is a
second or
senior.
third, I believe, something like that. She was.
Year after year after year, huh?
She's a very great athlete. Speaking of her and Kylie Wong Lee and Skylar Peach signed their national letter of intent for athletics for various different sports last week. That was a really great thing to watch. And yeah, that's it.
Good.
So,
Thank you all. Anybody have any questions for him?
Oh.
Nice job. Great update.
I will talk to you about tickets.
Anything else? Board members? Michelle, any updates?
Departmental.
Departmental, Vinny, anything else? Steven?
The only thing I have is,
thank the board again for all the support with everything. I appreciate it. And we're beginning our holiday toy and clothing drive and everything like that again, so boxes are out there, so if anybody has anything, bring it on by, and I'm glad to take it. Thank you again, appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief.
I forgot one thing too.
If you've got any people that need clothing that you don't have, could you direct them to us?
Oh, I will. Sounds like a good idea.
No, you're good.
Go ahead, Al.
The Booster Club is still looking for a sponsor for the baseball field and softball field revamp project. So, you know, like the over-occurring theme is getting involved with this board, I feel, and this is a really good way to get involved and really help out the town.
I'm on that committee,
Yeah.
and it's about time that we all work together to let the boys and girls in baseball and softball have fields they can play on at home.
Yeah. So.
So, good call. No, thank you. Oh, there's some cool
Good
things they're
job.
gonna be doing with bricks. They're gonna do like brick sales to help fund some of the things.
Near the bridge?
I don't know where they're gonna put them yet, but it's something that that's come up during the meeting, just as a fundraiser. Pretty neat. George? Sure? All right. Well,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Joseph.
I'm gonna move that we adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Joseph. Seconded by Mr. Johnson. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Good night.